Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Father's Friday. This is a weekly newsletter and conversation to help our members connect with their families and disconnect from work. Each week, I'll be speaking with members of our Fathering Together network to gain best practices, fun stories, and best of all, the worst dad jokes you can think of to jumpstart our weekends. So, Frederick, I hope you have one ready. It is June 21st. We are here with Frederick Van Riper. He's the founder and owner of Seat at the Table Coaching. You can find him at seatatthetablecoaching.com. He's also a FairPlay facilitator, retained certified parental leave coach, and host of Dad's Interrupted podcast. He also just happens to be a dad of two, a teenager and a little one. So welcome, Frederick. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Sure. So tell me more about Seat at the Table Coaching. The name, where'd it come from? How long have you been doing it?
Yeah, not even a year. I started around this time last year, right before the kids were done with school. And the name came from the idea that women have been fighting for their seat at the table and still are. And so kind of playing into that theme, and then men having to reimagine what the seat at the table that they've had for so long should look like. And so kind of a reimagining of that.
I love it. And my thought first went to, because we met a year ago, give or take, with
Yep.
Father's Friday last year, and a lot of our conversations revolve around gender equity, both in the home and workplace, everywhere. And so for my mind, it went to seat at the table of a kitchen, right? So where are dads seated at the kitchen table, and are we even working in the kitchen? Are we helping out with the chores and giving ourselves that leave to be present at the home, not just in the workplace? So, and I'm sure you weave that into the work you're doing too, but tell me, like, where did this passion for fatherhood come from? Like, why coaching? Why this route for yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. I, you know, I would say, for the longest time, I didn't want to be a dad. If you talk to me when I was in my late 20s and probably into my early 30s, looking around the world, the way things go, it just seemed like not only the idea of being responsible myself, but also like putting a life into the world that has all these dangers everywhere. Just seemed like, do I really want to do that? And I think it's interesting. I met my wife, and I I realized how amazing of a mom she was already, because when I met my wife at the time, she had been married before, got divorced, had a child during that relationship. So I became a dad basically overnight
Sure.
when we decided to buy a house together, which was which was like, again, I'm going through that in my head. Like, do I want to be a dad? Like, if I choose to commit to Sarah, I'm basically choosing to commit to fatherhood. And so, yeah, that was a lot. It was a lot of thoughts and a lot of reflection. And so once I became a dad to a daughter who wasn't my daughter, I'm now a stepdad, or wasn't in my head. That's what I'm telling myself. I consider her my daughter today. But at the time, never being a dad, I'm like, oh, she's like my stepdaughter. I don't know what I'm doing, all that stuff. And so, but it started to be like, I have her paint my fingernails and play with dolls and play Barbie. I remember this one, I was really not into it, playing going to the mall shopping with Barbies, and I was like, this in my head, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever done. But like, she loved it, and like spending
Yeah.
time with our kids is important. And so connecting on things, sometimes you got to do things maybe you're not super excited to do, to be present and be a dad. But I loved it. I loved that role. And so as Sarah and I continued our relationship, I was like, man, like, I kind of want my own. Like, I want to be like, I want to have one more. And so we talked about it. We decided yes. And we got married in August, and she was pregnant in October.
Wow.
So that was great.
Yeah.
I know some people struggle with that. So we were blessed pretty quickly. And so my son is 8 years old. He'll be 9 in August. And I just love being a dad. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question without saying I just love every moment of it. I wasn't always good at it. I don't think I'm ever going to stop learning how to be better. And I think, as you know, Brian, you have two of your own. As they grow up, like each age is a little bit different, and so you have to kind of like adapt to the new age and learn new things and
Mhm.
ask better questions. So yeah, it's a journey, and it's not a one and done. Like, oh, I'm a great dad and I'm done. Like, no, like when my daughter's 25, I'm gonna have to learn something else, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking with my therapist the other day about like a lot of my frustration and anger with being a dad is not because my kids are fighting me or disobeying me or anything like that. It's more I'm not ready to handle that next developmental step for them. And they catch me off guard, right? It's like, oh,
100%.
oh, you're moving faster than I was ready. I got to go read some more books, right? Or I got to talk to
Right.
my dad friends and bulk up some skills because this is uncharted territory. So totally hear you there. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and in the time that we've known each other, we've shared stories and career paths and things. And so you've not always been a coach. And so how did you juggle your career thoughts, ambitions to accommodate, so to speak, being a dad, right? Because we often pit them against each other in our culture, like you either work or you don't, right? And part of what we're exploring in this series is more a holistic understanding of no, we are both. We have to contain both of our identities or thousands of identities. And so, yeah, how have you navigated that? And do you have
Yeah.
any tips for dads out there?
Yeah. Great question. So before I became a coach, I was um, a construction project manager. I worked in that role for almost 10 years. I did not love it. It wasn't my passion. And
Yeah.
so I felt a lot of stress and anxiety. The work week, if anyone's listening that has worked in construction, like those hours are not, 40-hour weeks, it was often like nonstop. Even when I was off of work, I felt like I wasn't present in my home with my wife, with my kids. My phone was always on standby. It was just hard for me to turn off work. And I think that's why, honestly, I think that's the main reason why I didn't love it. There's other reasons, but to say that I've always been a great dad, I don't think that's fair. I think I consider myself a great dad today, which is awesome. And I think what shifted for me was I got fired in January 2021. I've told this story on LinkedIn. I got fired in January 2021, and I started to be home more just by default. And so I started to see things that I didn't really wasn't paying attention to. And some of that was gender equity things at home, how we were running our household, the FairPlay, things that Eve Rodsky talks about, which I was introduced to later. But I started to see it more myself.
Mhm.
And then about a year, roughly a year later, I watched the documentary. And that really was like eye-opening for me. And so being an entrepreneur is not easy.
No, it is not.
Either, right?
Yeah.
So like I moved from the corporate space, which is quote unquote 9 to 5, right? To now figuring out a different path. And I wanted to help. I wanted to help other dads see what I saw. I couldn't unsee what I saw, and I know how important this is. I know what it did for me and my wife, how it brought us closer together. I know what it did for me and my kids, how it brought us closer together. And so I said, I'm a smart guy. Like I did well in
Sure.
school.
Yeah.
I know I'm not the smartest person in the room necessarily, but if I'm not seeing this, like there's got to be like tons of other guys out there that are not seeing these things. And I want to help them. I want to help them have better relationships, stronger relationships. What matters most to me and what matters most, I think, to most dads and husbands is having strong, healthy, connected, loving, intimate relationships with the people they love the most. Their wife, if it's a heteronormative relationship, their partner, we'll say, and their kids. And
Mhm.
on our deathbeds, when we're dying, if we're lucky enough to have that moment, and I've said this before, I think I've said this on the podcast on Dads Interrupted. If you are sitting there lucky enough to have that reflection at that time, you're not going to wish you had more time at work. You're going to wish you had more time with your kids or more time with your partner.
Right.
those are the things we care about. So let's bring all of our skills that we have that we're using to crush it at work, and let's crush it at home where it matters most.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Maybe not crush our kids though. Like let's we can
Yes.
maybe find
Well,
another
yeah, you got to be careful.
metaphor. Yeah. 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 Wrestle to a certain point and then, back off. But I love that. Yeah. I guess what is one practice you do in a daily or weekly life that allows you to be more present and kind of check that professional goals identity, which you're right, like so many of us men are raised to think first, what is our career, how are we bringing in money? And there's no problem if that's like, if your goal is to bring in money for your family and that's how it's structured with your partner, have at it, right? But I think many of us don't want to just be the breadwinner or be the financial provider. We want some other outlet to explore identity. And so for you, like what was the light bulb, or what is not the light bulb, I should go back to my question. Like what's that strategy you employ to kind of keep that dad identity centered,
Mm,
or at least more in the limelight than in the past?
yeah. I prioritize presence now. If so just a real basic one is like not having my phone near me because
Mm,
they are addictive.
mhm,
If they're in your pocket or right next to you, you will pick it up.
mhm,
I will pick it up. I mean, I don't know if other people are better than that, but I will pick it up. I get restless. The way my brain works, like, and I think this is about knowing yourself, right? You have to know what you're good at, what you're not so great at. And one of the programs I went through is called Positive Intelligence. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Brian. It's a really
mhm.
great program. You can visit their website at positiveintelligence.com and check it out. I'm not sure cost wise what it is, but they're basically the idea behind it is you learn kind of like what your inner critic is saying to you, what your judge is saying, and knowing yourself better can only help you improve. So I'm always trying to improve. I think that's key. Like every day I wake up, I'm like, I ask myself literally in my head, how do I want to show up today? What is my intention for today? And often that includes, being a present husband, being a present father. So how do I do that? Well, phone goes away. If my kids are home, my phone is in a different room or it's in a
Mm.
drawer in the room I'm in if I know I'm expecting a call, let's say. Just so it's not right next to me. The restlessness that I have, it's like my brain always wants to be busy, busy, busy doing something. And sometimes I struggle with being present and just paying attention and like looking at the beauty that's right in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so the whole slow down to speed up thing is real for me. And it's like how can I implement ways to slow down intentionally?
Mm.
So that would be my answer. I mean, I could go on and on, but that would be my
Sure.
my answer.
No, I love it. We'll circle back, maybe get you back on when we have another 15 minutes. But that's a great identity strategy, right? Like that slowing down and being present. And I totally commiserate. I've tried phone free days, screen free days, and it's hard, right? Especially on the girls. They love using their iPads to learn. You've got different apps for coding and stuff for them, and to just rewind and be present just for your family can be a challenge. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that story. We are close to time. So is there a favorite quick story you can share that has come out of turning your phone off before we close with your dad joke?
Oh my gosh, putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Um, not not really, nothing like specific that comes to mind, but I will say like the when I started to do that, when I started to really pay attention to, okay, so there's a lot of context that we're going to miss in this because we don't have enough time.
Sure.
But the quick version is my daughter has a neurological disorder that's undiagnosed. And so she struggles. It affects her ability to speak sometimes and it affects her ability to move sometimes. It's complicated. Seems like once she gets going with her day, she's a little better with
Hmm.
those things. So it's really like it's just been a journey with that. And whether that's related to this, I don't know, but she has a different energy than I have, let's say. She's very, and you, the way you were describing your daughter before we came on, maybe it's similar. She's a ball energy, like really big, 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 like it's great. I love it. Sort of. So
Right.
like my energy is completely different. I'm very more even keeled. And so when she enters a room, she takes over. And like sometimes that feels confronting for me because I'm like trying to read a book or whatever I'm doing. I'm in a space. And then she'll come down with like TikTok or just a thing she saw on the internet, whatever it was, some idea that she wants to talk about. And it's great. And so for a long time, I didn't think it was great.
Yeah.
Really, for a long
Yeah.
time, I was like, I don't like this. This feels, I feel confronted, just the energy clash. And so I would often leave the room intentionally because I was like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know how to deal with this.
Mm.
And it took me a long time to realize how much I was missing.
Hmm.
And I'm like get a little choked up talking about it because like now I do have to force myself to stay in the discomfort. And I think that's just a lesson for everyone. Like being uncomfortable isn't bad.
Right.
So now I stay in the room with when she comes in, like I intentionally like pay attention to what she's saying because she just wants to connect.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that that energy is mismatched. That's on me
Right.
to figure out.
Right.
She wants to be with me or be, and teenagers don't will not say that. She won't tell me, "Hey, I want to be with you, Dad," at
Right.
17 years old. But that is her way of connecting. And so not having the if I hear this her coming down the stairs and I'm on my phone, I'm immediately off of it, like before
Mm.
she even makes it to the bottom, because I
Nice.
want to know what she has to say.
Nice.
And I've prepared myself. I prepared myself for the energy mismatch now. So like that I'm like, okay, this might feel uncomfortable. It's going to be okay. And I think it's important to have those conversations. At least for me, it is because otherwise I just felt like anxious. I felt like in my chat, like I felt it physically, but I was also, like I said, by going back to my comfort zone, I was missing out on like my kid.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
sucked. It
Yeah.
sucked. So now I don't do that. And it took, like I said, this wasn't an overnight switch. It took me a little while to figure that out. I also go to counseling, by the way, and I think that helps if men are listening. Like counseling is not doesn't mean you're weak. Like sometimes we need to talk about things that we're dealing with so we can get some outside perspective. And
Yeah.
to me, that's strength. And I always like to say that anytime I'm on any podcast or interview, because I think it's important for men to talk about
Yeah.
how getting therapy and counseling is not weakness. Please, if you need it, or even if you don't think you need it, but maybe you could, like I would encourage you to explore it.
100%. 100%. Love it. Um, I'm glad you shared that story because there's so much resonating in me that we will not get into, but appreciate you on so many levels, Frederick. Thank you. But let's end on a goofy note because we're still dads at heart, and part of being a dad is being goofy. So, what is your best, worst dad joke to share with our audience?
I don't know if it's the worst, but it's pretty bad. Uh, so I just told this joke. I drop my son off every morning to school. He's still in school for another week or so. And so I was telling this joke in the car before he got out. I said, why does Casper the Ghost's name start with a C and not a K? You have to say why.
Why?
Because you can't see him. No? Yeah, it's pretty
That's
bad. It's
I'm
pretty
laughing
bad.
on the inside. I'm laughing on the inside. That's great. So if you're
He
listening
didn't
and want
he
to
didn't
use
like
that,
it either.
well, use it on your kids if you're listening, and let us know how it goes. Frederick, thank you for being here and speaking with me today. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. We'll be back next week with another fantastic guest and an amazing conversation to give us insights into all the ways that we can strengthen our relationships with our friends, families, workplace associates, but even within ourselves. So until next time, enjoy your weekend. Peace, everyone.